The Self-Publishing Advice Conference, SelfPubCon 2025, brings indie authors from around the world together for 2 days of insight, inspiration, and connection. It's live online October 18 and 19 and free to attend. Get early access to our international competition and all the latest conference updates at selfpublishingadvice.org/conference-2025. Welcome to Self-Publishing with Ally, proudly sponsored by BookVault. Sell high-quality print-on-demand books directly to readers worldwide and earn maximum royalties selling directly. Automate fulfillment and create stunning special editions with BookVault Bespoke. Visit bookvault.app today for an instant quote. Our self-publishing news stream is sponsored by book cover design company Mibble Art. They offer unlimited revisions, take no deposit to start work, and you pay only when you love the final result. Get a book cover that will become your #1 marketing tool. And now, here's your host for Self-Publishing with Ally, Dan Holloway.
Hello, welcome to the Self-Publishing News, and it will be a short one this week. I apologise, my voice will probably not hold out for very much longer, as you can probably tell. The delights of taking a few days of leave being that, of course, your body catches up and realises just how depleted it actually is and crashes and leaves you with the delights of colds and flus and so on. Anyway, enough feeling sorry for myself. One of the things that was interesting in the news this week was a paper about the research that has been done into a study of reading habits in the USA. So this is a longitudinal study based on the American Time Use Survey between 2003 and 2023. You can get hold of a PDF of the full paper. It's an absolutely fascinating paper, but there are some really interesting headline figures. The one that pointed me to the paper, the one because it is the absolute headline figure, is that reading for pleasure decreased by 40% during the time period of 2003 to 2023, going from something that 28% of people do to 16%. Now, there is a lot to say about that, a lot to unpack and to contextualize. So first, the American Time Use Survey it's based on what people are doing on a particular given day. So it's a massive survey, 236,000 participants take part, so it's nice and representative, but it asks people to say what they are doing on the day that the survey takes place. So if reading is something you do once every fortnight, then it won't be captured. So this is on that day, 28% of people were reading in 2003, 16% in 2023. Obviously, the trend is still clear, even if that figure those figures of 28 and 16% seem rather low. They're probably higher than that in reality, but the trend is nonetheless quite similar. And over that period, the trend seemed to be for a decrease of about 3% per year on year, over the whole period. So, yeah, it's obviously seemingly really quite depressing, especially for those of us who write for readers who read for pleasure. But if you have a look at the paper, there are some things that the authors point out and that are worth bearing in mind. So this is a survey, first and foremost, that doesn't distinguish different types of reading. So in particular, technological forms of reading. So e-reading, and if Mark Williams wants to cover his ears at this point, taking in books through audio. So whether you want to call that reading audiobooks or listening to audiobooks, it doesn't specifically mention these. So if people, it just mentions reading. So if people think of reading as sitting down with a book, then that is what they will record doing. And so there isn't the nuance to pick up whether this is possibly that people's reading habits are shifting to other mediums for nonetheless reading books. So there is some speculation that this is because people are actually doing things digitally, but one of the things that people may be doing digitally is actually still reading. So there's a big caveat that goes with some of those figures and that decline. Another really interesting point is that the authors found no evidence that reading with children was in decline. So that's really interesting and much more encouraging. On the other hand, the figures of people who were reading with children, it was like 1 to 2% over the course of the whole thing. So yes, this is something that takes place on one day. And obviously people aren't necessarily reading to children every day, but that's still not many people are reading to children. So, but it's not something that is necessarily in decline. So yeah, there are some really interesting insights in there if you want to know what trends are, what people are doing, and what is influencing whether people are changing how they read and what they read. So one of the things that the authors of the paper speculate on is that people are reading more for sort of productivity and functionality. So yeah, that's great news for those of us who write non-fiction. But it's also this sort of implication of hustle and influence culture having an impact on people's leisure time. The other thing that they were surprised to find was that there wasn't much of an impact that COVID had on people's reading habits. So it wasn't that people locked themselves away with books. The reading habits seemed to remained pretty much unchanged, and the trends continued pretty much unchanged, both before and after 2020. So yeah, I will see if I can remember to put a link to the survey over for Howard. There's certainly one in the column where I wrote about it. Do spend a few hours poring over those results. I spent some interesting hours on my sick bed looking through that and felt greatly enriched for having done so. What else was in the news this week? We have various audiobooks news. I'm not commenting too much at the moment on the Audible royalties controversy. So this has really kicked off. I want to do a bit more digging before I start wading in, but you will no doubt be aware that last year Audible announced a change to the way their royalties are working. It has been going on in very, very limited beta for select authors and rights holders. The change was, in short, that those whose books are in the all-you-can-eat program and are consumed that way will be paid royalties, but those royalties will be paid for from a pool that is contributed to by consumers who buy a la carte. So basically, if you're buying an audiobook title by title, you buy a title, part of the money you spend on that title will go to the author of the title, which is what you might expect. Part of it will go into a pool that will pay people who have authored books that are read as part of the all-you-can-eat scheme and may not be someone who has read that particular title as part of that particular scheme. This has been seen as sort of like one step forward, two steps backwards. Step forward, obviously getting royalties to people whose books aren't being published a la carte. But the feeling is amongst authors quite strongly that this is readers will be assuming that their money is going to the person whose book they are reading when actually it isn't, and that actually you shouldn't take royalties away from one set of authors to give to another set of authors. There is a very big petition going around about this at the moment. As I say, I want to do a bit more digging before I comment in too much detail. The other audiobook news comes from Spotify, and that is that they have launched a feature called Follow Along. It seems to be you listen to an audiobook, they have paid an artist to do pictures that go round, and so you get this sort of immersive visual experience. It seems like a very strange thing to offer for an audiobook. Porter Anderson has likened it to sort of enhanced ebooks, and we all know how they end. I won't say we all remember how that story ends, because most of us have long since forgotten it, because they just didn't take off. And this sort of kind of feels like something that might not take off. If it does, I will certainly, of course, let you know. If it doesn't, it will probably just slip silently into the background, and we may or may not find out too much more about it again. I look forward to speaking to you at more length and in more depth next week, when I hope my voice will be less gurgly for you, and I hope you've managed to understand a little of what I have said this week. Take care and have a lovely week of writing and reading. Speak soon.
You've been listening to Self-Publishing with Ally, proudly sponsored by Book Vault. Sell high-quality print-on-demand books directly to readers worldwide and earn maximum royalties selling directly. Automate fulfillment and create stunning special editions with Book Vault Bespoke. Visit bookvault.app today for an instant quote. Our self-publishing news stream is sponsored by book cover company Mibble Art. They offer unlimited revisions, take no deposit to start work, and you pay only when you love the final result. Get a book cover that will become your #1 marketing tool. And if you haven't already, we invite you to join our association and become a self-publishing ally. You can do that at allianceindependentauthors.org.